Well, I wasn't expecting to make another video today, so it's about 12:30ish, I think 1 o'clock-ish. So this morning I made my I'm in Japan video, my culture shock video, and that's kind of what I thought for the day. Then I was going to edit the two and put them up, but I thought I was probably going to make one of these videos eventually, but not as soon. So we've actually just had an earthquake in Ehime, where I am. Annoyingly, it was probably like 10 minutes after I finished my first one. I was sitting on my bed and I felt the floor kind of going back and forth, and I was like, oh, this is a bit strange. And then my plant here, I saw it was moving up and down like this, and I thought this could be an earthquake. And it wasn't very long. Like the second I kind of clocked, everything stopped, and we have a group chat for all the English teachers in my area, and I just sent a message like, was that an earthquake? And I got a lot of replies, yes. So that was actually my first experience of ever feeling an earthquake in my life, since in England natural disasters don't really exist. If we get less than a centimetre of snow, that practically puts the whole country in a panic and lockdown, and flights get cancelled, trains get cancelled. You know, we don't do disasters in the UK. A little bit of snow puts us in disaster mode. So luckily for earthquakes, it was a very low one. It was under 2 on the Richter scale, so not a very intense one, but enough that you can notice it. And it's very strange because I was sitting on my bed and I could just feel myself going back and forward, and then seeing my plant move. And also I've got some washing hanging up at the moment, and that was moving a bit back and forward. So it was strange to kind of see it all. But even for some of these earthquakes, especially when they're the lower ones, you might not necessarily actually feel them as well, because technically this was my second earthquake. About 2 weeks ago I was in Matsuyama, which is the big city in Ehime, and me and some friends were at a bar, and I didn't really feel anything at the time, but when people kind of mentioned it afterwards and we got a load of text saying an earthquake just happened, we experienced an earthquake there, but I didn't feel it. It was quite a low one. It was under 2 as well, so depending what you're doing, you won't necessarily feel them, since in Japan it is the country with the most earthquakes. It's pretty common, especially if you live out here, you're going to experience a couple of earthquakes. But from my research I've done, and we've been in a lot of meetings about if an earthquake does happen in Japan, especially where I am. So if you are potentially worried coming to Japan and you're worried that an earthquake might happen, you know, it's something that it might happen, it might not, you know, it shouldn't be something that should stop you. It's better if it's going to be under 4.5. You're going to get like a little bit of shaking, but it's not going to cause any damage. So the earthquakes under 4.5 on the Richter scale are pretty okay. It could be a little bit jarring just to see things shaking, but you're going to be fine. If the earthquake is over 4.5 on the Richter scale, that's when you're going to have to potentially be a bit worried, since that's the earthquakes that will potentially start causing damage. But the one pro with Japan, you know, they're pretty prepped. They have earthquakes all the time, so they know how to handle it. And if you are going to come to Japan and an earthquake does happen, and if it is a high one, you know, my best safety advice for you is watch what the locals do, see what they do, and then kind of follow their cue, especially if you don't know anything and you just landed. That's my best advice if you come for a holiday, is just kind of watch what the locals do. So that's kind of the quick one. If it is quite a bad one, look for the evacuation points. So you either see a little green man running or a green man in a house. So if it's a green man in a house, that's the evacuation centres. But if it's just like a green man running, then those are kind of the safety points. So if you are in a bad one, keep an eye for the green man spots, because those are the designated safety points in Japan. If you are driving when an earthquake happens, try find the safest part to pull over, and then just stay in your car till the earthquake is over. And if you are in a building or a house, stay under doorways. Those are normally the more securest because of the beams, or depending for some of the new buildings in Japan now, they don't recommend doorways because the doorways aren't as strong. If you've got any kind of strong support beams, they also recommend to stand by them You basically want to find the kind of strongest part of your house where the support beam is, and if you've got kind of like nothing safe, just kind of stand next to it because the support beams are the strongest, so they hold the most weight. If you've got a good sturdy table, they also recommend to hide under tables, but just try and find the safest point. People also say bathtubs, you can hide in your bathtub if it's a really bad one. If you've got the time, get like a mattress or a futon to put on top, so in case if it is a really bad one and any debris falls on top, you're a bit more safer. And if you are out in public when it happens, just watch what the locals do. If it is a really bad one, just keep an eye on any floor or falling debris. But the biggest thing is, if I know some people are worried about earthquakes, so apparently where we are in Ehime, I've been told in the next 30 years we are expecting to get a really bad earthquake. And obviously I've heard some people are thinking of like moving away because if this happens, but the hard thing is I think you still have to go on with life, you know. Someone's saying like, oh, this disaster is going to happen in the next 30 years, you know, you could walk outside and get hit by a bus, you know. It's something that could potentially happen in the next 30 years, but it shouldn't be something that should stop you from going places or doing something because of this potential thing that could come in an unknown time frame. You know, you have to kind of just keep living life and enjoying it to the fullest, because you could be so worried about this and then you do something else, go outside, and then like I said earlier, you can get hit by a bus. So keep going and just watch what the locals do, because you know they're very equipped, they have a lot of earthquakes, so they know how to experience it. The biggest thing as well, what you might, if you come when there's a really, really bad one, a semi-example is the extreme earthquake they had in 2011 that triggered a tsunami. Since where I'm based, potentially we have a potential risk of a tsunami coming if a really bad earthquake happens. They are pretty good for warnings. You'll get on your phone if it's a bad one, like earthquakes happen, potential tsunami is on its way. And if that does happen, it's just finding higher ground. So where I am, we have a tall hill with a castle on, so we just either have to go up to the castle, or we have a high motorway above us as well. So they either recommend, whichever you can get to first, you either go onto the freeway or you get to the castle first, wherever you are in the situation of an extreme earthquake that it does trigger a tsunami. So you just got to find higher ground if it does trigger it. But again, if you are foreigner that's landed with no Japanese, not sure what's going on, just watch what the locals do, as they are pretty equipped with it. And everyone, when these sort of situations event happen, especially if it's an extreme one, you know, everyone's goal is to help one another. So if you are not sure, you know, just ask someone and they will be able to assist, or even just kind of, they'll drag you along to where they're going for safety. So yeah, it was interesting. My first time experiencing an earthquake. Obviously it was a very mild one. We'll see what happens while I'm living here, if any extreme ones come, which I'm hoping it's not. But it's interesting to finally experience like what an earthquake feels like. Hopefully this video might have been also useful for you guys if you are thinking of coming to Japan, so to give a little bit more of some safety for what to expect if you do come here and an earthquake happens. But hopefully, realistically, touch wood, when you do come, an earthquake won't happen, and if one does happen, it'll be quite like a mild one, like I just experienced today. But that's everything for today's video. If you've experienced any earthquakes or natural disasters, you know, let me know in the comments down below, as I'd love to know some of your experience wherever you live or when you've travelled. And if you also know any good earthquake advice as well, also put it in the comments down below. You know, let's have this as a helpful community for one another. And if you like these videos and want to see more about me living in Japan, then leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next Japan related video. Bye!